Scientific research is foundational to technological progress, public policy, healthcare, and education. It is meant to be an objective endeavor, a methodical pursuit of truth driven by evidence and rigorous analysis. Bias in research refers to systematic errors or deviations from the truth in data collection, analysis, interpretation, or publication. It can originate from human judgment, institutional pressures, flawed methodologies, or socio-political influences. When left unchecked, bias not only undermines the credibility of research, but also leads to real-world consequences: inequitable policies, failed interventions, misinformed public discourse, and wasted resources. This video delves into the various types of bias encountered in research, illustrates the damage they can inflict through real-world examples, and critically evaluates potential remedies. By dissecting this pervasive issue, we aim to reinforce the importance of vigilance, transparency, and accountability in the scientific enterprise. Bias in research can be broadly categorized into several forms. These biases may occur at any stage of the research process, from hypothesis formation to data reporting, and they often interrelate, compounding the problem. 1. Selection bias. Selection bias occurs when the participants or subjects included in a study are not representative of the general population. This may happen intentionally or unintentionally. For instance, if a clinical trial on a new drug recruits only young, healthy volunteers, its findings may not apply to older patients or those with comorbidities. Example: in the infamous Tuskegee syphilis study, 1932 through 1972, researchers studied the progression of untreated syphilis in African American men without informed consent or proper treatment. The sample selection was racially biased and unethical, and the findings were both scientifically flawed and morally abhorrent. 2. Confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is the tendency to favor information that supports one's pre-existing beliefs or hypotheses, while discounting contradictory evidence. This can distort data interpretation, literature review, and even experimental design. Example: in early studies on the effects of video games on aggression,
researchers often designed experiments that were predisposed to show negative effects, ignoring neutral or positive outcomes. This fueled a moral panic not supported by more comprehensive meta-analyses conducted later.
3. Publication bias. Publication bias occurs when studies with positive or significant results are more likely to be published than those with null or negative findings.
In pharmaceutical research, positive studies about a new drug's efficacy are often published, while trials showing inefficacy or side effects may be buried or underreported. This was the case with selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, where numerous unpublished studies questioned their efficacy, especially in children and adolescents.
5. Funding bias. Funding bias occurs when the source of funding influences the research outcomes. Researchers may consciously or subconsciously design studies or interpret data in ways that align with the interests of the funder.
Tobacco industry-sponsored studies in the 20th century consistently downplayed the risks of smoking, often by manipulating statistical methods, cherry-picking data, or using biased samples.
Bias is not an academic concern limited to ivory towers. It directly impacts human lives, policy decisions, and technological development. Here are several spheres where biased research has had devastating effects.
Research bias in medicine and public health can lead to ineffective or harmful interventions. Misrepresentation of data, especially in drug trials, can result in premature approval, misuse, and even fatalities.
Thalidomide crisis. In the 1950s-60s, inadequate trials and poor regulation led to the approval of thalidomide as a sedative. It caused severe birth defects in over 10,000 infants globally. 2. Social policy. Policy decisions based on biased research can entrench systemic inequalities. Flawed and racially biased studies in the 20th century claimed genetic superiority of certain races based on IQ scores, leading to justifications for segregationist policies and educational discrimination. 3. Technology and AI. Bias in training data or algorithms can propagate discrimination in emerging technologies. Facial recognition. AI systems trained on predominantly white faces have significantly lower accuracy in identifying people of color. This has already led to false arrests and surveillance abuse, as seen in the United States. While bias may never be fully eradicated, we can take meaningful steps to identify, reduce, and counteract its influence. Here are some practical and systemic interventions. 1. Pre-registration of studies. By registering study protocols and hypotheses in advance, researchers commit to predefined methods and outcomes, reducing the risk of data dredging and reporting bias. 2. Open data and transparency. Open access to data allows independent verification, replication, and meta-analysis. Transparency in methods and full disclosure of conflicts of interest are also essential. 3. Emphasizing replication. Journals and funders should support replication studies, which are crucial for verifying findings and building reliable knowledge. The Reproducibility Project in Psychology found that only about 40% of high-profile studies replicated, underscoring the need for scrutiny.
Bias in research is a persistent and multifaceted challenge that threatens the integrity and utility of science. It distorts evidence, misguides policy, and in extreme cases, endangers lives. The danger lies not just in individual lapses, but in systemic structures that reward selective reporting, overlook reproducibility, and permit conflicts of interest. Addressing bias requires more than technical fixes. It demands cultural change. We must cultivate a research environment that values truth over prestige, transparency over secrecy, and inclusivity over convenience. Only by acknowledging and confronting bias can we restore public trust in research and ensure that science serves the greater good, not narrow agendas. In a world increasingly shaped by data and algorithms, rigorous, unbiased research is not just desirable, it is imperative. The future of evidence-based decision-making depends on it.